Hello and welcome back to my channel, The Little Craft House. If we haven't met before, my name is Nicole and I am earring obsessed. I love to make polymer clay earrings and I love to show you guys how you can make them too. In today's tutorial, we're going to be talking about silk screening. So over on Instagram recently in Reels and here on YouTube in the Shorts, I have been doing a few little quick videos showing silk screening and I've been getting lots of questions. So I thought it was time to redo my step-by-step tutorial, showing you guys from very start to very finish to the end, how to do the silk screening. And so we're going to talk about what paints to use, we're going to talk about sealing them, everything in between. So yeah, from start to finish. So if you've got questions about silk screening, stick around because hopefully I should answer them. If I don't get them answered, pop your question in the comments boxes and I will get back to you and let you know the answer. So before we start, I shall let you know that we sell all these items in our store. The two particular silk screens that I'm using today, we don't have in stock yet. They will be coming very soon, but we do have a massive range of other silk screens that are available. We also stock the paint, the polymer clay, and everything else that you're going to need. So check out our website if you're in Australia, because yeah, you can grab everything you need from there. Okay, so I thought we would start by just talking about the silk screens to start with. So a silk screen is made of, it's like a fabric, so it's nice and soft, it's nice and flexible, and it kind of has like a mesh image on it, if that makes sense. So where you can see that white image there, that is actually a fine mesh, meaning that this is one piece. It's not cut out. So I'll grab a stencil and show you the difference. So it's similar to a stencil, but, oh, if I can get out of the packet. So a stencil has cutouts between the designs. So that's a hole between each of those designs, whereas this is one solid piece. Now, much similar to t-shirt screening and things like that, the process of a silk screen is to put it down, pop your paint on and screen print across so that the image then transfers onto your polymer clay. Okay, so let's start with our first example. So I've rolled out some polymer clay through my pasta machine so that it is nice and flat. There's a slight colour difference there, I'm not quite sure why. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Let's smooth it onto our tile so that has a bond between the tile and the clay. And then I'm going to get my silk screen and I'm going to place that on top. So it's important we make sure that our silk screen is the right way around. So most makers will brand their screens with their name or a number. Make sure that that number is readable from the top. So we don't want to put it face down. We want to have that number readable and on top. And what we're going to do is pop that silk screen onto our polymer clay and we're going to give it a gentle rub to bond the silk screen to the clay. We want to make sure that there's no air gaps in between and we want to make sure that it is nice and smooth. Now, if you want, you can trim away any extra bits on the edge. Some people like to do this because it just stops the chance of paint spilling over and dirtying that side bit of clay. I suppose it's so dirty. Now, I'm just going to go really simple today on this one, black clay, white paint. So the paint that I'm using is just a Montmartre paint. It is a thicker style paint. It's not thick, but it's also not runny. So you want to choose a paint that has a bit of thickness to it. I wouldn't go using something like ink or watercolor paint or anything that's runny, because what will happen is even though it's bonded to the clay, you may find that the color will seep underneath and bleed through and then not create a clear, crisp image. So thicker paint is better. Now, before I apply my paint, I'm going to tell you the most important step to silk screening. So I talked before about the fine mesh. When we apply our paint, we're going to silk screen it over the top. We want to be fairly quick. We don't want to take too much time. And once we've done it, we're going to pull the screen off and we're going to wash it immediately. You do not want to wait between applying the paint and washing, because as soon as the paint dries within those mesh parts, you will not be able to get it out, and therefore it will create a blockage and the silk screen will not be able to be used again. If you get your silk screen washed up quickly, it will be back to being as good as new, and it can be used over and over again. I just want to quickly show you two silk screens that I have that are quite old. So this one here, you can see it is quite stained, but as you can actually see through the mesh there, it's still able to be used, and I don't have any issues using this. It's stained because I've used dark coloured paints, but I have been able to wash them off, and this isn't an issue. I can still keep using it. I have once, however, not washed my silk screen quick enough. I was trying to be clever, and I was trying to do two slabs in a row. And so I did one with the silk screen, I pulled it off, and I thought I'll be really quick, do the second one. I put it down, I silk screened over it, ran it to my bathroom to wash it off, but the first layer, I'm assuming, had already dried. So that is this silk screen here. So I don't know if you can kind of see, there are patches where the paint has dried in it, and so I now can't use this silk screen properly because those bits, the paint doesn't go through anymore because it's blocked. Yeah, so that one's kind of ruined. I've kept it because there are bits that I can use, but yeah, we don't want to aim for this. We just want to do one at a time, get it washed and cleaned, and then we won't ruin our silk screens. One more thing, and I'll probably mention it again in a minute, we do want to wash it with cold water. Hot water or warm water will set the paint. So make sure that it is a cool tempered water, and running water is good. But if you just want to have a bowl of water on your desk, then you could do that as well, just making sure that you're getting all the paint off. My desk is completely chockers full of half-done projects, so there's no room on my desk. What I like to do is run down to my bathroom because it's just down the hallway, and I will wash it off there. So no one's allowed in my way when I'm running through the silk screen. I'm literally yelling, out the way, clear the way. Dogs, children, things get in the way. Right, so back to my example. So I've got the clay is bonded to the tile, and then I've got the silk screen on top bonded nicely there. And so back to my paint. So I've chosen just zinc white today, and we're just going to do a small layer going across the top of the screen, and then we're going to scrape it down. Now you've got two options for your scraping. Sorry, we will get to the silk screen in a second. Two options. One is to use a reusable card. Mine's looking a bit dirty here. This way, this is like a thicker plastic. That way, once you've scraped it, you can wipe any excess paint off, give it a wash, and it's reusable. The other option is an old business card, cardboard ones. I've had a whole bunch that I had printed from a while ago. The details are incorrect now. So I use these so that I'm using them up. Same thing, screening it across. I'll remove paint, but I can also tear it in half and then use the other side so that they're not completely wasted, being reused a couple of times. But yeah, the plastic ones are good. This one's a bit dirty, so I'm not going to use this one today. I am going to use the cardboard. Okay, so just a small layer across the top there, and then we're just going to screen it down. I like to go both directions just to make sure that I've covered each bit. Scrape off any extra, and then the peel and reveal. Let's go wash the screen. Okay, just under the running water. Oh, I can't move the camera to show you. Let's see. And I'm just going to start rubbing it. And generally I like to work from the centre out, so that way if anything is left on, it's the outer bits that are stained and not the centre. see, it is as good as new. So I'm just going to pop this onto a piece of paper towel, and then that's just going to allow it to air dry, and then I can file it back away into my little thing that I keep all my silk screens in. So one of the questions that I do get asked a lot is how long do I wait for the paint to dry before I start cutting out my pieces? Well, this paint here dries pretty quick, and by the time I've gone down, washed my screen, come back, chosen my cutters, it's ready to cut. Depending on the paint that you use, it could be a little bit longer or even a little bit less, but just find a spot around the edge just to touch, see if it's dry, that's not smudging, so it's ready to be cut. Now, depending on the pattern, I would sometimes cut out some little extra studs and things, but I actually want to show you what can be done with the scraps, and it's easier for me to show you with more scrap to work with. All right, so I've got the skeleton there. I'm just going to pop that to the side for a second. And I'm going to use my flexi blade to just lift these off of the tile and pop them onto my baking tray. I have to share the baking tray with another project because I haven't baked that one up yet. All right, so I'm going to bring my skeleton back in here. Now, there's a few things that you can do with the scraps. So firstly, it would just be to smush it all back together, roll it all out, pop it through the pasta machine a couple of times, and just blend that paint back into the clay. Sometimes, depending on the paint, depending on the color, depending on the thickness of that paint, sometimes you end up with sort of like veins going through your clay. So that's a nice effect if you want that sort of marble effect, or if you're going to be then mixing with something else such as granite or something like that. But what I like to do is I've got some alcohol wipes. So they contain 75% alcohol. You can also do this with isopropyl alcohol if you've got some handy. And I just like to clean the clay off. So the wipes work really well because I can kind of position them, but just giving it a little scrub. It takes a few moments just to lift that paint off. A baby wipe also works as well. And I'm just literally cleaning the clay. Okay, so it is pretty much back to normal. By the time I recondition this, pop it through the pasta machine a couple of times, it will be a nice solid black lump of clay again. Okay, so for the second example, today I thought I would just show you with this Skinner blend. I did this blend a little while ago and wasn't sure quite how to use it, but today I've decided I'm going to silkscreen it. So this is the one we're going to use. So again, just popping it on top and smoothing it out. And for this one, I'm going to use a gold paint. This one's a little bit runnier than the last one that I used, so it will be a little bit easier to cover, but I wouldn't go too much runnier than this normally. Gonna go wash it off and I'll be back. Okay, so time to cut it out. I didn't cut down the extras this time around the edge, so I just have to make sure when I'm cutting I don't slip over onto the plain bits. Okay, so I'm going to transfer all of these now onto the baking tray as well and get them all baked up. Okay, so another question that I always get asked about is baking. So please refer to your packet instructions for how long you need to bake your clay for. I tend to do mine between the 120, it's about 130 degrees, and I do it for generally an hour. My little dial here only goes to 30 minutes, so I do that twice. And so with those scraps, I cleaned it off and then I'm just relayering it and then popping it back through the machine to make it back to a Skinner blend again. Righty-o, fresh out the oven, all baked up. So there is now the next couple of steps to do. So I need to sand the edges of the pieces to neaten them up. I need to seal them and I need to drill the holes. So there is a number of different glazes that you can use. These are the ones that I own and use the most. Today we're going to go with the Fimo semi-gloss. I don't want the pieces to be too shiny and glossy, so we're just going to go with a semi-gloss today. So the main reason that we need to seal our pieces is to protect that paint. Oh, I've got paint on my fingers. We want to protect the paint that is now on our components. So it is held on pretty well, and if I was just making them for myself, I may not bother sealing them because I wouldn't be too fussed if it came off or not. But if I'm gifting or selling, and just for general longevity of the pieces, we are going to seal them. So I want the matte finish today, or semi-gloss finish. But yeah, as I mentioned just before, there is plenty of different sealers out there. So whatever you would usually seal your clay with, you can use that. Otherwise, look for one that is a specific Polymer Clay brand. So your Fimos, your Sculpies, your Cernet, they're the ones that I've found to be the best sealants for the clays. Now, if you did want a super glossy, super shiny finish, you can always use resin. So these ones here, I did a while back, and as you can see, they are super glossy. They have the extra layer of resin on top. This was the epoxy resin. I prefer to use a 2-part epoxy resin as opposed to the UV resin. That's just a personal preference. Obviously, you can use whatever you like and prefer yourselves. But with the weather being kind of cooler and damp at the moment, I don't like to crack the resin out while the weather's like this. Just takes a lot longer to cure, and the results aren't quite as good, I find. So yeah, today we're just going to be using the gloss glazes, and yeah. So I'm going to glaze my pieces before I go and do the sanding and the drilling. So I'm just going to use a soft paintbrush and apply my glaze. If you do find that your pieces have streaky brush marks, you could always use your finger just to apply it as well, and that tends to prevent those streaky marks. So I'm going to leave these now for about an hour. The instructions say touch dry after 20 minutes and a full cure within 24 hours. I'm going to leave them about an hour. I'm going to come back and then do all the sanding and the drilling and get them all neatened up. The reason that I like to do the sanding after I've varnished is that there's no dust left on them. I find obviously sanding creates a lot of dust, and because you've got the paint on, you don't really want to go and wash these or wipe them down with anything. So I just varnish them first, and then that way that paint's protected, and then I'll go and do the sanding. And if there is dust, then I can give them a quick wipe over with just a dry cloth, or if need be, I can just use a damp cloth, but not scrubbing too hard still, because we don't want to take any of the varnish or the paint off. Okay, so I've waited for these to dry now, and just while the sun is shining through, I just want to see if you can see how beautiful that gold sparkle is. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it has absolutely gorgeous sparkle and shine to that paint. So that's why that one's one of my favorite. Anyway, I am now going to start drilling, and I'm going to drill first because my drill already has the drill attachment attached. So I'm going to drill first, and then I'm going to swap over to, where is it? To this attachment here. This is a buffing tool, and I'm just going to go around the edges and knock off any of the rough bits. So there's rough bits there. And yeah, just smooth it up a little bit. So I'm going to drill first, and then I'll do the buffing. I'm going to just do it as a bit of a time lapse because it's noisy and you won't be able to hear me talking if I do it with sound. So yeah, let's get on with it. Okay, so everything is now all drilled and sanded and ready to be made into earrings. So as much as this is just a silkscreening tutorial, I thought I would just quickly show you guys assembling them into the earrings. I have to do it anyway, so I may as well just film myself doing it and show you guys. I've picked out a bunch of different findings. So these ones we have all available in our store. as well. Some little bowl studs, these little fancy feature tops. I've got some little middle connectors, which I think I'm going to put onto these ones. And then I've got the jump rings. We're going to go with gold and black to coordinate it all. And yeah, so I'm going to assemble these now. Now they're all finished and carded up, it brings us to the end of today's tutorial. So hopefully I've answered any questions that you may have had about silk screening on your polymer clay, as well as how to finish them and make them into earrings. So any other questions, please pop them in the comments box and I will try my hardest to answer them for you. Thank you once again for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed it and I shall see you next time. Bye.